It's a long time not to be talking.
All right, here we are. So we are in the second chapter, according to my numbering, Mishnah 15. We're in the middle of Rabbi Eliezer's numerous comments. We say that each of these disciples had three things to say. We talked already about it, the fact that after the three things of Rabbi Eliezer, there's another couple of things that he says. But the second of his statements is what we're up to right now. So can we find somebody who's going to find that second statement and read their translation? Geraldine, it's all yours.
Okay, the second one of Rabbi Eliezer.
Yes.
Okay, be not easily provoked to anger.
Very good. That's a pretty good translation. And Josie, have you caught up with us? You have to unmute. Yeah.
Are we at 2:15?
That's what I got.
All right. Rabbi Eliezer teaches.
Eliezer
teaches, be slow to anger and return one day before you die.
So be slow to anger. That's the translation that Rabbi Shapiro gives. Be slow to anger. And the other one that we got was be not easily provoked to anger. Right?
I happen to agree with him on that.
All right. It's about time. Right. So, okay, here we go. We open the floor to anybody's comments about this particular warning or piece of advice.
I have always had trouble dealing with anger from childhood. And I read somewhere that angry people don't feel anything bad to themselves once they get it out, but everybody around them is upset and distraught and maybe even frightened. And I've always wondered about that, you know, like you get angry, you let it out and you're okay and everybody else is miserable. So anger to me is a very difficult thing to deal with.
Anybody else? Craig.
Oh, I just have a question. When he talks about anger, is he talking about internal anger, or is he saying try not to let yourself get angry in the first place, or is he saying, yeah, it's okay to be angry, but don't let it out. Don't don't express it.
All right.
It's tough.
Right. That's a good question about it. The Hebrew could be literally read as, well, the translation that Geraldine, do not be easily provoked to anger. The word in the Hebrew is Noach. Noach, like the word Noach, like Noach, like Noah, the Noah's Ark. Noach is related to the word Menucha, right? The word rest, tranquility, Shabbat Menucha, right? But Noach is also comfortable, right? The idea of just being at ease with whatever the situation is. So to be at ease with getting angry would be one way to translate this. Don't be so comfortable with getting angry. So Sarita, yeah, it's hard to see you. You got your backlit and you're in the darkness there.
And we're only so I wanted first to respond to Josie.
Can't hear you.
Can't hear you.
I wanted first to respond. Oops, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
To Josie, because sometimes when I have gotten anger and I've let the anger show, I actually have felt awful. So I think that depending on the person, and with what you talked about, though, the comfort with anger seems to suggest sort of an angry set of mind. You have people who are just angry.
If you turn your head a certain way, we can't hear you, or at least I can't.
All right, sorry. So Josie said, I feel like sometimes when I've gotten angry and shown it, I have felt bad.
No, it's you gotta. Don't put the cat. You know what?
Okay, I'll put it here. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Ooh,
So
sorry.
Okay, that's okay. I should know about this. I've been using Zoom to
Yeah.
teach for how long? So one, in response to Josie, when I have gotten angry and shown it and been angry at somebody else, I have sometimes felt awful. So I think that sometimes it isn't just that you vented and now, wow, now I feel great again. Sometimes it's like, oh my God, you feel even worse. But the in terms of that translation about feeling comfortable, that suggests that this is also saying that not just that you shouldn't get angry at specific things, but the idea of having an angry set of mind and being an angry person, a person who is always angry. And we're watching Sunday morning here. They're talking about the violence in Baltimore. One mother who lost her husband and 2 children who were murdered. And the one of the issues is that people, like they were talking about, people who feel so oppressed, and so even the smallest slight sets you off as a trigger, and you go and you get a gun and you shoot that person. And so I think that that's really, you know, an angry mindset, and they're fighting against it. They're trying to get people out of that mindset to sort of break the pattern.
Yeah. Thank you. Jen, you're raising your hand?
I was petting my cat, but I will say I know what Josie's talking about. I've also had that feeling where you release and then you like wrought destruction though in your wake. And that was an issue between me and a former roommate of mine. And it's not really the best way of coping. This is what I've learned. And I also have anger management issues, and it coming from half a family that believes that's the right thing to do, to explode and then it's all over with. And actually it's really not. So I am trying to get to the root and, you know, stop the anger issues before they happen. I found a couple of good books on anger management. One is called The Cow in the Parking Lot. It's like a very Zen approach, but it's working for me so far. So I mean, I would advise, like, I totally know where you're coming from, Josie. And I would say, though, I think we still kind of need to find alternate ways of dealing with stress and things, and try to root out that anger and look at the ridiculousness of things. Because I remember I've gotten angry at devices, right? And actually terrified my cats. And when I did that, I felt so awful about it. They were so like actually afraid of me, and they're never afraid of me. So you can see they got over it. But you know, that really was kind of a wake-up call. I don't want to be frightening my pets.
So the cow in the parking lot, is that the same thing like the
I
elephant
think that's
in
what it's
the room?
called.
The elephant in the room, the cow in the
I don't. It's a guy who was set off by any little thing, and one of his tricks was like to imagine not that some other evil driver stole his parking spot that he'd been waiting for, but just to imagine that a cow walked in there instead, and see it as like he wouldn't get angry at a cow who was just doing his thing. So. Or her thing. So it's just like kind of, as I said, it's from a very Zen Buddhist point of view, but it's working, you know.
Good.
It's helping at any rate. I don't know if it's actually working, but it's helping.
Carolyn.
Well, when this says be not easily provoked, you know, some people react to every little tiny thing in a very, you know, severe way, and to, you know, stop and think about what it is that's disturbing you and react appropriately for yourself and for the other people.
Right. So, I mean, we brought up all kinds of things. The question that Josie brought up, how much of this do we take cognizance of about as our issue? How much of it is about the kind of damage that we might be doing to other people by exploding? And it's interesting that, you know, that Josie said, you know, it's cathartic for some people, right? You blow off the steam, and you're expecting everybody else to appreciate that you're being cathartic, and you know, so that's the way it is. And some families have a culture like that, and you know, we were always yelling at each other. We never really took it personally. We always, you know, thought that this was the way that you communicate, and then afterwards you find out, well, but there was this one person in the family that was like feeling that they were completely being in a, you know, in a bomb shelter while all these explosions were going on, and it didn't work for them in the same kind of easygoing way. So what, what exactly is it? What's gained by losing control, by turning up the volume and really screaming at somebody, or with acting out and stuff? What exactly is that doing? What is it about? But that's, a very demonstrative kind of thing. But then there are a lot of things that, that should maybe make us angry or not. That's part of the question. Is there a legitimate time and place for anger? But that's not the same thing as being comfortable with anger. That's not the same thing as being easily provoked, right? That's like saying, think about it. Be a little bit more judicious about the anger. There, as you might imagine, there are stories in the Talmud about people getting angry. And some of them, are not so, that it was bad. The Talmud says that, for instance, whenever Moses got angry, he made a mistake. That anger is not going to be a source for making good decisions and good choices. It's also ironic that this is Rabbi Eliezer speaking. Rabbi Eliezer was actually a pretty stubborn and cantankerous guy. He got into trouble. We've told the story a number of times because he wouldn't back down when the majority of his colleagues voted against him on a particular legal matter, on a halachic question. And he was convinced that he was right, and the heavens said that he was right. And then his colleagues said, but we don't listen to heaven. We have our own human responsibility to see things the way we see it. So just because heaven says that we should see it the other way, if we don't see it that way, when we can't say, it would be dishonest for us to agree with you. So we can't, and majority rules. And he wouldn't give in. And he was then put into cherem. He was put into social quarantine. He was excluded from participating in the rabbinic studies and in the community, and he really got angry. He really got angry about it. So this is a kind of a circular kind of question. Did he say this because he was actually trying to be self-critical? Did he say, you know what, I've got anger management issues, so let me tell you, as somebody who belongs to AAA or whatever, Angry People Anonymous or something, let me tell you that I struggle with this, so watch out yourself? Is he saying it with that kind of self-awareness? Or is he saying it with, I'm never unnecessarily angry, I'm always appropriately angry. It's everybody else who's too easily angered about stuff that's that doesn't mean anything, but not me. But that's part of what the question is that he's saying, right? They're all these sayings, all three of them are about self-examination, right? They're all three saying, ask yourself these questions. And it's hard sometimes to know whether you're giving yourself the right answer. But you still have to do it. What does anger do actually? What's the point of anger? What would be a good use of anger? All right, Jen, and then Josie, and then Craig.
If you see something wrong, to spur yourself to make it right. It can give you some energy and some determination. So if you use it to right some wrong, not necessarily to go after one individual, but to correct a situation or to do, I think that would be the most constructive use I've been able to find for it so far.
Okay. Josie, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, I would say along those lines. So
You froze. Let's come back to Josie, Craig, and then Geraldine.
Yeah, I was going to say, well, it's the same thing. When you see an offense against justice, you see some injustice, then it's right to be angry about that. When you see, if it doesn't affect just you, it affects, humanity at large.
So when it affects humanity at large, what does the anger do?
Hopefully it motivates you to go out and do something about it. Instead of just sitting in your room and, there's like Billy Joel's angry young man just sitting there and stewing about it, go out and do something, channel your anger into some type of action to try to right the wrong.
So that's all again internally directed. Is there any point in expressing your anger to others?
Help get other people motivated. Say, hey, look, there's this. Look at this injustice that's being done. Can't you see it? Oh, gee, I never saw that before. Yeah, maybe it'll do some good. So there can be constructive use of anger, but when it's done in a destructive way, that's when it's bad.
Yeah, Geraldine.
I agree with Jennifer and with Craig. You use it as a motivation to create something that changes the situation, changes a bad situation.
Sarita, yeah. More, turn it more.
Okay, so just to what Craig was saying, I think that sometimes when something happens to you and you feel angry, you could use that anger. It doesn't have to be depersonalized, depersonal anger. So for instance, you have Mothers Against Drunk Driving, you have people who are affected by school shootings who are really furious and they're channeling the anger about what happened to them, what they experienced, to try and change something and really prevent some horrible thing from happening to other people. So I think that that's a sense where anger about something that was that affected me could be directed outward in a positive way.
Okay. So Josie, you were frozen before, so we went on to other people, so we couldn't hear what you were saying. So now we're going to come back to you.
To me, you couldn't hear me before?
No, you froze. And on my screen, you're frozen.
Yeah, that happens.
Yeah.
I was in that same theme that if you're angry enough, it may motivate you to give money, go on a march, write a letter to the editor, do something that hopefully will at least ameliorate some of the problems, even though you're one small voice. You got to react in a positive way.
I was thinking, I walk my dog.
Yes, you do.
My dog is really intrigued about this piece of rotten meat that's on the ground there, and really is like pulling over there to go get that piece of meat. And I yell at my dog and say, no, you can't have that, right? I'm actually trying to exert some kind of power over this creature. Or let's say there's a little kid about to stick their hand into the flame of a stove, right? And you yell at them. Is that anger?
I think that's terror.
Or protecting, you got to stop the action.
So yeah, I'm just thinking as I speak, I'm thinking anger also is wrapped up in issues of power, right? You want to be able to stop certain things. You want to be able to stop certain people from doing certain things. You want to be able to stop some bad thing from happening. And sometimes you exert your power by yelling at somebody that says, I'm the boss and I'm not going to let you do this. I'm telling you what's right and what's wrong.
Can't let a kid put their hand in fire.
Correct, and they have to learn it somehow, right? They have to learn. But yes, so that's where the anger, or what happens if you've told your kid, your student, whatever, to clean up something 1 time, 2 times, 800,000 times, right? And they keep on not doing it, right? So would it be human at, at some point to maybe lose it and say, how many times have I told you to clean this up? Right? So there, what I'm thinking is like the power issue is paradoxical there, because on the one hand, you're assuming that I should have power. You should be listening to me. You should be doing what I think is right. And yet I really don't have power because you're not doing this. You're not listening to me. Or you're not learning what I thought would be something that would be by now, second nature for you. Lou.
Lou
I'm
is
just trying to come to grips with people like Gandhi. Was he angry? Was Martin Luther King angry? Is the Dalai Lama angry? I mean, these are people who have tremendous sway over events, and I don't remember ever thinking that any of them have ever been angry.
Yeah, I think that there's probably a range over there, and those are excellent examples. The Dalai Lama only gets angry when you don't get one of his jokes. Then he's like, then he gets really ticked off. But other than that, world hunger or other things like that, that doesn't face him the same way. I think Martin Luther King did get angry.
Yes.
I think Martin Luther King, was first of all motivated by a kind of a righteous anger, but I think he also got plenty angry at many times. Although he, his public activities and his public persona were not, in the same thing, let's say like a Malcolm X kind of thing, or some of the younger people who thought he wasn't angry enough, and didn't express anger in the same kind of way that they felt should be, would be effective. Their argument was that people only listen if you're angry. If you don't speak out of anger, they're not going to listen to you.
That might be some truth to that.
Sarita.
So I had never seen Ken Burns' baseballs. I watched the whole thing. And when Branch Rickey hires Jackie Robinson, he says to him, one of the conditions, and he made him sign on to this, was that you have to zip it for 3 years. You're going to experience horrible things. People are going to be terrible to you. They're going to say horrible things, but you've got to keep it under control. And then after 3 years, he releases him from that. And Jackie Robinson for 3 years just boiled with anger. He actually tried to channel his anger into his baseball, to being a better baseball player. But it also ate him up. His wife talked about how that affected his long-term health. And after, he was very, very active, in civil rights and what have you, and speaking out. So, there are issues about, what do you do? What do you do with your anger? I remember when Moshe was little, and he would get legitimately angry at stuff. And sometimes he would hit somebody else because he was angry. And I would say to him, you're perfectly justified in being angry, but you can't hit somebody else, because as soon as you hit somebody else, all anybody sees is not your good reason for being angry. They now see that you did something, and they judge you negatively. So I think that the way that we channel our anger and when we channel it, it is important, and not always an easy balance.
Mm-hmm.
So it's very tough to, Josie.
I always have admired cats. When they're angry, they
What's the first
hiss.
name?
Irving Katz.
Irving Katz, yeah.
I've always had cats, and when they're really angry, they hiss. And I always say that's like a declaration of war. And if only people, and then they walk away from each other because they understand this is it. You better get out of here. I always think, what if people could do that instead of lashing out?
Right.
So I know you're a dog lover, but cats are pretty smart.
Cats are extraordinary. I'm a dog lover because I can relate to them better. Cats are like out of my league. Yeah. Jen.
So this is probably part of why I'm not a teacher, but I do think it is possible to do that. When I was long-term sub for a group of very difficult junior high kids, I actually walked into the classroom one day and said, if any of you give me a hard time today, I'm going to turn into Megovich. And they made that my superhero name. But afterwards, I was just able to say that to them, and it calmed down the classroom. So I couldn't use it all the time, but on days when I was having a hard time, it actually did work. So I think we can get to a place where we can say that to each other. And I think that's probably more effective than me waiting to blow up, which is what I've grown up doing. So.
Geraldine, yeah.
This is sort of an indirect way. I had many parent conferences where the husband and wife come in together and they disagree with one another about how they're doing something with the child. This was an Asian family. It was their child was first generation and very bright. And the father went to work every day. And when he came home, the child was perfect with him, and she waited to do her homework. He was the only one who could help her. And the mother was at home, but she was a pianist. She taught her piano. She was very talented, but the child saw her as the person to act out against. And so they came in and we talked, and I made some suggestions. And I said, but if you have any questions, let me know how things are going. Well, the next day, the mother sent me a note and asked if she could see me by herself. It made me angry that the mother wasn't comfortable in front of the father expressing, the difficulty she had with the child. So I created a situation where she came in, she spoke with me without him there, because he was saying that what she said wasn't true. And I gave her some suggestions, and she thanked me profusely. And it was my anger that she was so frustrated and she didn't have the support of her husband. He didn't see things the way they really were. And the fact that she came in by herself and I was able to guide her, and it worked, and it helped my anger at the situation. And it helped her as well.
So we have to end now. I just want to say that this is certainly complicated, and at least one of the things that we should, I hope, take from what Rabbi Eliezer is saying is, don't be comfortable with anger. At least think it through. At least think what's going on here. What place does this, have in your persona, in your way of dealing with the world, and the way of dealing with other people? We say about God on Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, Ki kishimcha kein tehillatcha. The way we name you is the way we praise you. Kasher lichos v'noach lirtzot. You are difficult, or you are hesitant, or it's not so easy to get you angry. V'noach, the same word, but you're comfortable in making up, in being satisfied with us. So God is the opposite of this, right? God is supposed to be the opposite, and we're supposed to try to emulate those kinds of attributes. All right, so as I said before, this is our last session until after the holidays, and I want to wish everyone a Shana Tova U'Metuka, a sweet and good year, and we'll see you on the other side.
Shana Tova.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Shana Tova.